The shrill sound of the alarm echoed through Samantha's small house, a merciless reminder that it was 5:30 in the morning. She reached out to turn it off, moving slowly so as not to wake Amelia, her 10-month-old daughter, who slept serenely in the crib next to her bed. Samantha's eyes fixed on the portrait of David on the wall. Her husband, tragically lost 2 years ago, smiled eternally in that photo, a smile that brought her both comfort and pain. With a deep sigh, Samantha got up. Mornings were a constant battle against time and exhaustion. In the kitchen, the low sounds of pots and utensils indicated that Ethan and Tyler were already awake. At 9 years old, Ethan had taken on enormous responsibilities for his age, while Tyler, just 6, did what he could to help his older brother. Ethan, with a serious expression on his face, was trying to pour milk into a cereal bowl while Tyler watched attentively. "Ethan, let me try," Tyler asked, stretching his hand toward the milk carton. "Tyler, be careful, you're going to spill it," Ethan replied, his voice laden with forced patience. Samantha entered the kitchen, with Amelia still asleep in her arms. The fatigue was visible in her eyes, but she forced a smile when she saw her children. "Good morning, boys. You're amazing," she said, trying to hide the fatigue in her voice. Ethan looked at his mother with a glimmer of hope in his eyes. "Mom, do we have enough milk today?" Samantha felt a pang in her heart. "Sorry, Ethan. We're out of milk, but I'll try to get more after work, okay?" Ethan nodded, trying not to show his disappointment. "It's okay, Mom. I can have bread with butter. And Tyler too, right, Tyler?" Tyler smiled, happy to be included. "Yes, I like bread with butter." Samantha put Amelia in her high chair and started preparing breakfast with what was available. Time seemed to fly faster than usual. Every second counted, and she knew that any delay could complicate the day even more. As she spread butter on the bread, Samantha felt a twinge of sadness. David always took care of breakfast, turning every meal into a special moment. Now, it was up to her to keep the family together, but the difficulties were enormous. After breakfast, it was time to get the boys ready for school. Ethan and Tyler dressed quickly, but there was always something that needed last-minute attention. Ethan, already dressed, helped Tyler tie his shoelaces. "Let me do it, Tyler." "Mom is busy," Ethan said, skillfully and quickly. Samantha, with Amelia in her arms, checked if the boys were ready. "Ethan, did you get your backpack?" "Tyler, don't forget your lunch." "I got it, Mom. Everything is here," Ethan assured, raising his backpack. "Me too, Mommy," Tyler exclaimed, holding his small lunchbox. Samantha smiled, relieved to have everything under control, at least for now. She led them to the door, kneeling down to hug them before they left. "Have a good day at school, boys. And help each other, as always." "We will, Mom. We'll be fine," Ethan replied, with a maturity that always surprised Samantha. Tyler waved excitedly, holding his brother's hand as they walked to school together. Samantha closed the door, took a deep breath, and kissed Amelia's forehead, who was beginning to wake up. The day had barely started, but she already felt the weight of responsibilities. With Amelia in her arms, Samantha hurried to get her daughter's medications and head to the hospital where she worked as a nurse. The salary was low, but it was all she had. On the way, she looked at Amelia and whispered, as if seeking strength in her words, "We'll make it, my little one. One day at a time." As she rushed to catch the bus, her heart tightened. Leaving her children was always hard, but she knew she needed to work to support them. In Samantha's mind, the promise she made to David echoed, to take care of the family and never give up, no matter how difficult it was. The hospital was in its usual frantic rhythm when Samantha arrived, still trying to shake off the sense of urgency that seemed to follow her every step. She adjusted her backpack on her shoulder and walked into the lobby, where the strong smell of antiseptic and the sound of hurried footsteps were constant. Samantha had barely reached the break room when Dr. Richard's cutting voice echoed through the halls. He was known for his authoritarian nature and his penchant for intimidating employees. "Samantha, I need you to work overtime today, he ordered, not even looking at her while reviewing a chart. Samantha took a deep breath, already preparing for the argument she knew was coming. Dr. Richard, I can't. I have 3 children at home who need me. He finally looked up, his face contorted in an expression of disdain. You know you could lose your job, right? The way he said it, with a low, threatening voice, sent a chill down Samantha's spine. She was about to respond when Abby, her colleague and friend, appeared beside her. She already does more than she should, Richard. Leave her alone, Abby said, with a firmness that contrasted with her usual gentleness. Dr. Richard snorted, clearly irritated at being challenged. Stay out of this, Abby. You can be replaced too. Samantha felt the tension in the air. Abby was risking a lot to defend her friend, but their loyalty to each other was unshakable. When Dr. Richard walked away, still snorting, Samantha turned to Abby with a look of gratitude. Thank you, Abby. I really don't know what I'd do without you here, Samantha said, her voice choked with emotion. Abby smiled and gave Samantha's shoulder a light pat. We're in this together, Sam. Always. The shift progressed with the usual chaos. Samantha rushed from one patient to another, administering medications, comforting the distressed, and trying to maintain her own sanity. It was exhausting work, but she dedicated herself wholeheartedly, knowing that despite the difficulties, she was helping people. Midway through the shift, the phone in the break room rang. Samantha answered it quickly, already anticipating problems. Hello, is this Ethan and Tyler's mom? The school principal's voice sounded urgent on the other end of the line. Yes, it's me. What happened? Samantha asked, her heart racing. Amelia is very sick. She needs to be picked up immediately, the principal informed. Samantha felt a knot form in her stomach. I'm going right now. Thank you for letting me know. She hung up the phone and ran to find Abby, who was in the hallway. Abby, I need to leave. Amelia is sick, and I need to pick her up from school. Abby looked at Samantha with concern. Go, Sam. I'll take care of your responsibilities here. Go take care of your daughter. Samantha thanked her quickly and left in a hurry, fear and worry pulsing in her chest. As she ran through the hospital corridors, she bumped into Dr. Richard again. Where do you think you're going, Samantha? He asked, his voice icy. My daughter is sick. I need to pick her up from school, Samantha said, not stopping. If you leave now, consider yourself fired, Dr. Richard threatened, his tone firm and cruel. Samantha stopped, turning to him with eyes burning with anger and determination. Do what you have to, Dr. Richard. But my children come first. Without waiting for a response, she turned and left, feeling Richard's eyes burning into her back. The tears threatened to fall, but she forced herself to stay calm. Arriving at the parking lot, Samantha got into her car and drove as fast as she could to the school. When she arrived, she found Ethan holding Amelia, who was crying and seemed feverish. Ethan's face showed the concern of an adult, despite being just a child. Mom, Amelia is really hot, he said, his voice trembling. Samantha took Amelia in her arms, feeling the abnormal heat of her daughter's skin. It's going to be okay, Ethan. We're taking her to the hospital now. With Amelia secure in the back seat, Samantha started the car and drove back to the hospital, trying not to let panic take over. As she drove, she looked in the rearview mirror and saw Ethan holding Amelia's hand, murmuring comforting words to his sister. We're almost there, my little one. Hang in there, Samantha whispered, her eyes fixed on the road. Arriving at the hospital, she ran inside with Amelia in her arms, calling for help. Abby was there, waiting, and quickly took Amelia from her arms, carrying her to the emergency room. Samantha stayed in the waiting room, with Ethan and Tyler by her side. Time seemed to drag as she waited for news about her daughter. Every second was an eternity, but she remained firm, knowing she needed to be strong for her children. Finally, Abby came out of the emergency room, a relieved smile on her face. Amelia is stable now. She's going to be fine, Sam. Samantha let out a deep sigh, feeling the tears finally stream down her face. Thank you, Abby. You have no idea how much this means to me. Abby held Samantha's hand, squeezing it gently. We're here for you, Sam. Always. Samantha hugged Ethan and Tyler, feeling the tension dissipate a little. She knew the battles were far from over, but at that moment, all that mattered was that Amelia was okay. And with Abby by her side, she knew she could face whatever came next. The sky was beginning to darken as Samantha ran desperately down the isolated road to pick up the boys from school. The trees along the road cast long, sinuous shadows, creating an almost cinematic scene of tension. She was so focused on her thoughts and worries that she didn't hear the sound of the rapidly approaching engine. Suddenly, a car appeared around the curve, speeding. Samantha froze, her eyes wide with panic, unable to move. It was then that she felt a strong pull on her arm. The force yanked her out of the car's path at the last second, causing her to fall to the ground beside the road. The car whizzed past without slowing down. Gasping, she looked up and saw an elderly woman with a concerned expression. "Thank God. Are you okay?" the woman asked, her brown eyes shining with worry. Samantha was trembling, her heart pounding wildly. She tried to compose herself, still too shaken to speak. I think so. Thank you so much. I'm Samantha." The woman smiled, extending a hand to help Samantha up. "I'm Stella. It seems you're going through a tough time." Samantha took the outstretched hand, still trying to catch her breath. "Yes, Stella. I was on my way to pick up my kids from school. My daughter Amelia is sick and—" Samantha's voice faltered, and tears began to stream down her face. All the stress and worry of the past hours finally caught up with her. Stella looked at her sympathetically, holding her hands firmly. "Tell me more, dear. Maybe I can help," Stella said, with a compassionate smile that seemed to invite trust. Samantha hesitated for a moment, but something in Stella's warm presence made her break down. "My husband died 2 years ago, and since then, I've been trying to take care of my 3 kids alone. I work as a nurse and, today, my daughter Amelia got sick. I'm so worried, and my boss at work, he's a horrible man. I don't know what to do."
Stella listened attentively. Her gæse og nu ævring.
When Samantha finished, Stella lightly squeezed her hands. "Samantha, I know it may seem strange, but I want to help. Let me take care of your kids while you work. You need support, and I'm here to offer it." Samantha was surprised, her mind racing with the unexpected offer. I don't know what to say. It sounds crazy, but I really need help. Are you sure?"
Stella nodded firmly.
"I am. Trust me, Samantha. Sometimes, help comes from where we least expect it." With a mix of relief and apprehension, Samantha decided to accept. She needed to believe that Stella was there for a reason.
Okay, Stella.
"Let's do this. I will trust you." As they walked together to the school, Samantha began to feel a glimmer of hope. Stella seemed to radiate a calm and wisdom that were comforting. When they arrived at the school, Ethan and Tyler were waiting at the entrance, and Amelia, still feverish, was in the arms of an assistant. Ethan ran to his mother, hugging her tightly. "Mom, are you okay? What happened?" Samantha hugged him back, feeling the security in her son's arms. "I'm okay, Ethan. This is Stella. She's going to help us a little, all right?" Ethan looked at Stella with curiosity and a premature maturity.
Hello, Stella.
"Thank you for helping my mom." Stella smiled, kneeling down to be at eye level with Ethan and Tyler. "Hello, boys. It will be a pleasure to help you. Let's take care of your sister and make sure everyone is all right." Tyler, more shy, held Samantha's hand but smiled at Stella. "Thank you, Stella." With Amelia in her arms, Samantha felt a wave of gratitude. As they walked back home, she began to tell Stella about the children's routines and needs, realizing that, perhaps, things could get better. The morning was cold, but the warmth inside Samantha's house was palpable. The smell of fresh coffee and toasted bread filled the air, a nearly forgotten sensation of normalcy. Stella was in the kitchen, taking care of Amelia, who was happily babbling in her high chair. Ethan and Tyler ran around the house, laughing and playing as they hadn't in a long time. "Good morning, Stella," Samantha said, entering the kitchen with a tired but genuine smile. Stella smiled back, stirring the spoon in a pot of porridge. "Good morning, Samantha. I made breakfast. I hope you like it." Samantha looked at the set table with gratitude. "It's wonderful, Stella. Thank you so much. I can't remember the last time I could sit down and have breakfast peacefully." As Samantha served herself, Ethan ran over to Stella, holding a drawing. "Look, Stella. I made a drawing for you." Stella leaned down, admiring the colorful paper. "How beautiful, Ethan. I'll put it on the fridge for everyone to see." Not wanting to be left out, Tyler tugged at Stella's skirt. "I made one too, Stella. It's a drawing of our family." Stella looked at Tyler's drawing with teary eyes. "You boys are very talented. I'm so happy to be a part of your family." Breakfast was a mix of lively conversations and laughter. For the first time in a long while, Samantha felt a glimmer of hope. Stella not only helped with daily tasks but also brought a sense of peace and security that the house had lost with David's death. After breakfast, Samantha prepared for work, feeling a pang of anxiety. Dr. Richard continued to be a threatening presence at the hospital. However, the strength she found in her children and Stella helped her face the daily challenges. At the hospital, Samantha was busy organizing files when Dr. Richard's voice sounded behind her. "Samantha, my office. Now." She took a deep breath and headed to the boss's office, trying to stay calm. When she entered, she found Dr. Richard sitting behind his desk, his eyes fixed on her with a cold stare. "You have been very disappointing, Samantha," he said without preamble. "I need someone dedicated, not a mother who runs home at every little problem." Samantha swallowed hard, feeling anger bubbling beneath the surface. "Dr. Richard, I am here every day, giving my best. My children need me, but that doesn't mean I'm not dedicated to my job." He stood up, walking around the desk with a disdainful expression. "You should consider your priorities. I can replace you at any time." Before Samantha could respond, Abby entered the room, her blue eyes blazing with determination. "Dr. Richard, she does more than anyone else here. If someone needs to be replaced, it should be someone who doesn't value their employees." Dr. Richard snorted but didn't reply. Samantha felt a wave of gratitude for Abby. She knew facing Dr. Richard wasn't easy, but with Abby by her side, she felt stronger. "Thank you, Abby," Samantha said as they left the room. "We're in this together, Sam." "He can't keep treating you like this," Abby replied, squeezing her friend's shoulder. At the end of her shift, Samantha returned home exhausted but relieved. As she opened the door, she was greeted by the laughter of her children and the smell of a delicious stew. Stella was in the living room, reading a story to Ethan and Tyler, who listened attentively. "Mommy!" the boys shouted, running to hug her. Samantha kissed her children, feeling the day's tension melt away. "How was your day?" "It was great, Mommy. Stella told us stories and played with us," Ethan said excitedly. Stella smiled, closing the book. "It was a very good day, Samantha. And Amelia is getting better." Samantha looked at Amelia, who was smiling in Stella's arms. "That's wonderful. I don't know how to thank you, Stella." Stella stood up, shaking her head. "There's no need to thank me. We're a family now. We're here to help each other." As dinner unfolded, Samantha felt more hopeful than ever. Stella's presence had transformed the house, bringing a new energy and sense of community that she thought had been lost forever. After putting the boys to bed, Samantha sat with Stella in the living room, both sipping a cup of tea. "Stella, I'd like to know more about you. How did you end up here? Stella sighed, looking at her cup. It's a long story, Samantha, but I think it's time to tell it. The sun was setting, painting the sky with shades of orange and purple, as Samantha and Stella talked on the porch of the small house. The children were already in bed, and the silence of the night allowed their thoughts to flow freely. Stella, you've been an angel in my life, Samantha began, looking at the older woman with gratitude. But I feel there's more to your story than you've shared. Stella sighed, gazing at the horizon with a distant look. We all have our stories, Samantha. Some are harder to tell than others. Samantha leaned forward, gently holding Stella's hand. You can trust me, Stella. We're a family now. I want to know more about you. Stella hesitated, but something in Samantha's sincerity encouraged her to continue. I had a son, Samantha. His name is Evan. He meant everything to me, but we lost contact many years ago. Stella's voice trembled as she spoke, and tears began to fill her eyes. Samantha squeezed her hand, offering support. What's his name? Samantha asked, her voice soft and full of empathy. Evan, Stella replied, tears streaming down her face. He was a sweet and intelligent boy, always worried about me, even when he didn't need to be. Samantha felt a pang in her heart. What happened between you two? Why did you lose contact? Stella wiped her tears with the sleeve of her sweater, taking a deep breath before continuing. It was my fault. I made wrong decisions, trusted the wrong people. And one of those people, Rachel, his fiancée, did everything to drive him away from me. She wanted to make sure I didn't get any of the inheritance Evan would receive. Samantha felt anger rising within her. That's terrible, Stella. We need to find Evan. He needs to know the truth. Stella looked at Samantha, surprised. Do you really think we can find him? It's been so long. Samantha nodded, determined. Yes, Stella. I believe we can. We'll use every resource we have. Together, we'll find him. In the days that followed, Samantha and Stella dedicated themselves to searching for clues about Evan's whereabouts. Samantha used her free time at work to do online research, while Stella combed through old correspondence and documents, trying to find any lead that could help them. One night, while going through a pile of old papers, Stella found a letter that seemed different from the others. Samantha, look at this. It's a letter from Evan, sent just before we lost contact. Samantha carefully took the letter, reading the words attentively. Stella, he mentions an address here. It might be where he was living at the time. Stella looked at the letter, her hands trembling. It's a lead, Samantha. We need to follow it. With the help of Abby, who proved to be an even more valuable friend during this search, they managed to locate the address mentioned in the letter. It was a small apartment in a distant neighborhood where Evan and Rachel had lived together. We have to go there, Stella, Samantha said, holding her friend's hand firmly. It could be our chance to find Evan. The following weekend, Samantha, Stella, and Abby went to the address. The building was old but well maintained. They climbed the stairs to the apartment indicated in the letter and knocked on the door. A young man opened the door, looking confused to see the three women. Can I help you? Samantha stepped forward. We're looking for Evan. He used to live here. Do you know where we can find him? The young man looked at them with curiosity. I'm Evan. Stella stood still, tears streaming down her face. Evan, it's me. Your mother. Evan blinked, shocked. Mom, how did you find me? Stella took a hesitant step forward. We have a lot to talk about, my son. I made mistakes, but I never stopped thinking about you. Evan opened the door completely, allowing them to enter. Come in, we have a lot to discuss. The conversation that followed was full of emotions. Stella told the whole story of how Rachel had manipulated and driven Evan away from her. Evan, in turn, shared his own difficulties and the distrust he had felt for so long. "Rachel told me you didn't want to contact me anymore, that you only wanted the money," Evan said, his voice choked. "I didn't know what to think." Stella shook her head, holding her son's hands. "It wasn't true, Evan. I was manipulated, just like you. But now we're together, and that's what matters." Samantha and Abby watched, moved, as mother and son reconciled. They felt honored to have helped reunite a family. After reuniting with Evan, the reconciliation brought a wave of relief and hope for everyone. However, as the days passed, Samantha and Stella knew there was still much to uncover. Rachel, Evan's fiancée, was a persistent shadow over the family's recent new beginning. One night, while they were having dinner at Samantha's house, Evan, Stella, and Samantha talked about the past. Abby was taking care of the children in the living room, allowing them a moment to discuss more delicate matters. "Mom, I need to understand everything that happened," Evan said, his eyes fixed on Stella. "Why did Rachel do this? What drove her to be so cruel?" Stella took a deep breath, trying to control her emotions. "Evan, Rachel has always been ambitious. When you inherited your father's fortune, she saw an opportunity. I never completely trusted her, but I never imagined she could go that far." Samantha, listening attentively, asked, "Stella, how did you find out about Rachel's involvement?" Stella lowered her head, her voice trembling. "When I lost my memory, I spent a lot of time on the streets. One night, I overheard two men talking about a job they did for a rich woman. They mentioned my name and the attack. When my memory started coming back, I realized Rachel was behind everything." Evan, with anger and sadness in his eyes, said, "She told me you had disappeared by choice, that you were tired of everything and wanted to vanish. I believed her because she seemed so convincing." Stella held her son's hands. "I would never abandon you, Evan. Never. She manipulated you to ensure I was out of the way." Samantha, determined to help, suggested, "We need to confront Rachel. She must be held accountable for everything she did." Evan nodded, his eyes shining with determination. "Yes, we need to. But we must be careful. Rachel is smart and won't admit anything easily." The next morning, Samantha and Evan began planning how they would confront Rachel. Evan decided the best place to talk to her would be at her house, where she would feel safer and perhaps more inclined to reveal the truth. Arriving at Rachel's house, Evan felt a mix of nervousness and anger. Samantha, by his side, offered silent support. When Rachel opened the door, she looked surprised but smiled when she saw Evan. "Evan, dear, what a pleasant surprise," she said, in a sugary voice. Evan walked in, his face serious. "Rachel, we need to talk. And you better be honest." Rachel looked at Samantha, her expression changing slightly. "Sure, let's talk. What's going on?" Evan sat on the couch, Samantha by his side. "Rachel, I know what you did. I know you orchestrated the attack on my mother." Rachel paled but tried to maintain her composure. "What are you talking about? That's absurd." Samantha intervened, her voice firm. "Rachel, we know the truth. Two men talked about the job they did for you. They mentioned Stella." Rachel started to sweat, her calm facade beginning to crack. "That's a lie. They're trying to frame me. You can't believe them." Evan looked directly into Rachel's eyes. "I believed you once, Rachel. You manipulated me and lied about my own mother. It's over." Rachel, seeing her lies unraveling, began to cry. I just wanted to ensure we would stay together, Evan. Your mother was always between us, and I was afraid she would take you away from me." Evan stood up, the pain evident on his face. "Rachel, you almost destroyed my life. You made my mother suffer more than I can imagine. There's no excuse for what you did." Samantha looked at Rachel with disdain. "We're going to the police, Rachel. You must answer for your crimes." Rachel, realizing there was no escape, sank into the couch, defeated. "All right. I'll do what's necessary. Just forgive me, Evan." Evan shook his head, sadly. "It's not that simple, Rachel. Your actions have consequences. You'll have to face justice." In the following days, with Rachel's confession and the evidence against her, the police began their investigation. Rachel was arrested, and Evan started the difficult process of accepting the truth and moving forward. With the truth about Rachel exposed and Evan now by her side, Samantha felt a new strength growing within her. The weeks following Rachel's arrest were marked by renewed peace and unity in her family. Stella was happier and healthier, and the children adapted well to the constant presence of their grandmother and uncle. However, deep down, Samantha knew there was still one battle left to fight, one that would take place at the hospital with Dr. Richard. On a Tuesday morning, Samantha entered the hospital with unshakable determination. She had spent the night talking with Evan and Stella, planning every step she would take. As she walked through the hospital corridors, she felt the curious and encouraging looks of her colleagues. Abby met her in the break room. "Ready, Sam?" Samantha took a deep breath and nodded. "More than ever. It's time to end this." Together, Samantha and Abby walked down the corridor to Dr. Richard's office. Samantha knocked firmly on the door, and after a brief "come in" from inside, they both entered. Dr. Richard was sitting at his desk, looking surprised and irritated to see them. "What's going on here?" he asked, his voice icy. Samantha stepped forward, her eyes fixed on Dr. Richards. "Dr. Richard, I will no longer tolerate your abusive and inappropriate behavior. I'm here to report you." Dr. Richard laughed, a dry, disdainful laugh. "Report me? And you think anyone will believe you?" Abby, standing beside Samantha, crossed her arms. "It's not just her, Richard. We all know how you treat the staff here. Enough is enough." Dr. Richard's laugh died in his throat as he realized that Samantha and Abby were serious. He stood up, trying to maintain his authoritative posture. "You are making a big mistake. I am the boss here." Samantha didn't back down. "That doesn't give you the right to harass and threaten your employees. We have enough evidence, and our colleagues are ready to testify." Dr. Richard looked around, his eyes narrowing. "Evidence? What evidence?" Abby pulled a folder out of her bag and opened it, showing a series of documents and employee statements. "Here is the evidence of your abusive behavior. We will not stay silent anymore." Dr. Richard began to sweat, his confidence slowly evaporating. "This can't be happening. You can't do this to me." Samantha stepped forward, her voice firm. "We can and we will. You will be held accountable for your actions." Before Dr. Richard could respond, the office door opened again, and a group of Samantha's colleagues entered, including nurses, doctors, and even some patients who had witnessed Dr. Richard's inappropriate behavior. Among them was the hospital administrator, who looked visibly uncomfortable with the situation. "Dr. Richard, we have received several complaints about your behavior," the administrator began, his tone serious. "And now we have enough evidence to start a formal investigation." Dr. Richard tried to argue, but his voice failed. He looked around, seeing the determined faces of his colleagues, and realized that his reign of terror was coming to an end. Samantha felt a wave of relief mixed with satisfaction. "We are no longer afraid of you, Richard. You can't control us anymore." The administrator gestured to two security guards who were standing by. "Dr. Richard, please accompany them to the office. We need to discuss your immediate suspension and the start of the investigation." As Dr. Richard was escorted out of the office, Samantha felt tears fill her eyes, but this time they were tears of relief and victory. Abby held her hand, smiling. "You did it, Sam. It's finally over," Abby said, her voice full of pride. The colleagues around them clapped discreetly, whispering words of support and congratulations. Samantha looked at each of them, feeling deeply grateful not to be alone in this fight. When the commotion subsided, Samantha left the office, breathing in the fresh air of the corridor. Abby followed her, and together, they walked back to the break room. "How do you feel?" Abby asked, handing her 2 cups of coffee. Samantha took the cup, feeling the comforting warmth in her hands. "Free. For the first time in a long time, I feel like I can breathe without fear." Abby smiled. "And now, what will you do?" Samantha thought for a moment, looking to the future with hope. "I'm going to focus on my family and my work. Now that Dr. Richard is no longer here, I want to help create a better environment for all of us. And, of course, take care of Amelia, Ethan, and Tyler. They deserve the best of me." The news of Dr. Richard's suspension quickly spread throughout the hospital, bringing a sense of renewal and hope. Samantha knew there was still work to be done, but she felt ready for any challenge. With Dr. Richard gone and the atmosphere at the hospital changing for the better, Samantha felt as if a huge weight had been lifted off her shoulders. Stella, now reunited with her son Evan, was happier than ever. Samantha's house was filled with laughter and joy, something that hadn't happened in a long time. Evan, grateful for everything Samantha had done for his mother, began spending more time with the family. He got involved in daily activities, helping with the kids and sharing precious moments. One sunny afternoon, while preparing lunch in the kitchen, Samantha and Evan talked about the future. Ethan and Tyler played in the yard, laughing and running, while Amelia babbled happily on the kitchen floor, surrounded by toys. "Samantha, I never thought I'd find a home like this again," Evan said, chopping vegetables. "You've all become my family." Samantha smiled, stirring the soup on the stove. "Evan, you've brought so much joy into our lives. Having a loving uncle has made a huge difference for the kids." Evan stopped what he was doing and looked at Samantha with an intensity that made her heart race. "I have something important to say too." Intrigued, Samantha turned to him. "What is it, Evan?" He took a deep breath, and before Samantha realized it, Evan was kneeling on the kitchen floor, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. Ethan and Tyler, noticing the scene, stopped playing and ran inside, curious. "Samantha, I know we've been through a lot together, and I know this journey has made us stronger. You and your kids have become my family, and I don't want to spend a single day without you. Will you marry me?" Samantha was speechless, tears filling her eyes. She looked at the children, who had huge smiles on their faces, and then at Stella, who stood at the kitchen door, smiling with approval. "Yes, Evan," Samantha replied, her voice choked with emotion. "I want to marry you." The boys jumped for joy, and Stella wiped a tear from her face. Amelia, not understanding what was happening, babbled and clapped her hands. Evan slipped the ring onto Samantha's finger and stood up to hug her. In the days that followed, the house was filled with wedding preparations. Samantha wanted a simple but meaningful ceremony, surrounded by the people she loved most. The small house was filled with flowers, laughter, and an atmosphere of happy anticipation. On the big day, the ceremony was held in the garden under a pergola decorated with white and lilac flowers. Ethan and Tyler, in tiny suits, took turns holding the train of Samantha's dress as she walked down the aisle. Amelia, in a cute white dress, was in Stella's arms, who smiled proudly. "You look beautiful, Mommy," Ethan whispered, holding Samantha's hand. "Thank you, my love," Samantha replied, caressing her son's face. Evan stood at the altar, waiting for Samantha with a smile that radiated happiness. When Samantha finally reached his side, he took her hands and whispered, "You're everything I've ever dreamed of." The celebrant began the ceremony, and the words echoed in the hearts of everyone present. "We are here to celebrate the union of Samantha and Evan, two souls who have found a new life together. This is a new beginning, marked by love, hope, and the promise of a bright future." When the vows were exchanged, each word was filled with emotion and sincerity. "I promise to stand by your side, in good times and bad," Evan said, his voice firm. "I promise to love and care for you and the children with all my heart." With tears in her eyes, Samantha responded, I promise to be your partner in all journeys, to share joys and overcome challenges together. I promise to love you every day of my life." When the celebrant pronounced them husband and wife, the joy was palpable. The guests clapped, and the boys cheered loudly. Evan kissed Samantha tenderly, while Amelia clapped her hands, caught up in the euphoria around her. The reception was an intimate celebration, full of laughter, dancing, and heartfelt speeches. Stella, with a sparkle in her eyes, made a toast to the newlyweds. "Samantha, you brought my son back to me. And, Evan, you found a family that loves you deeply. May you all be blessed with eternal love and happiness." With music playing softly in the background, Evan danced with Samantha under the starry sky. The children played around, and friends and family chatted happily. Samantha looked around, feeling a deep peace and immense gratitude. "We're just beginning, aren't we?" Samantha asked, looking into Evan's eyes. Evan smiled and pulled her closer. "Yes, my love. This is just the beginning of a life filled with love and happiness. Together, we can overcome any adversity." Samantha nodded, feeling the warmth of Evan's embrace and the love of her new family around her. She had finally found the peace and security she had longed for. From that day on, she knew that together, they could face any challenge and create a bright future for everyone.
So, if you're not subscribed yet, click on the subscribe button below and join our community. Thank you for your support and see you in the next videos.